What it comes down to so often is this black and white feeling on it.
Right.
It works. It's going to cure everything. It's going to fix you. Those drugs are terrible, or it's garbage and it doesn't provide any value. Whereas with so many of this, the truth is in the middle. The point again of the elimination is just to start to begin to figure out, does food make a difference for you?
Yep.
And then from there, how do you deal with it?
This is Generation Health. We bring you the latest news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices, helping you live a longer, healthier life. Joey DiMatteo, PharmD, how are you, my friend?
Feeling good. How about you?
I'm good. And today, actually, your other major qualification in letters, board-certified clinical nutritionist, is going to come in handy.
Comes into play here, yeah.
That's a little tease. We're going to talk about food. Josiah Schweinberg, third mic, engineer extraordinaire, mustached.
There you
Marvel.
Nothing I bring to the table is any benefit.
There's
today.
a t-shirt. I'm going to
true.
get it for you. It says, I bring nothing to the table.
Not true at all.
Thanks.
No, it's not true. We love you.
Well, good to be here.
You're great.
Wow.
We had
Thanks,
to-
guys.
We kind of had to let off that whole Tyler doesn't like Josiah joke that was going for a minute.
That was a bit you
It
were
was
trying
happening.
for a little bit.
It was a bit I was trying out. It didn't work out.
Just getting shut down. Can I talk? No.
No. Look, just know your place.
I like when you talk.
Well,
You've got good words.
tell that to my wife.
We have got a fantastic, really interesting clinical trial that was just brought to our attention. This thing came out a little while ago, but this is from the Netherlands, and it's a clinical trial looking at ADHD, kids with ADHD and their diets and dietary interventions to see how those would affect. That's the really broad brush idea. Joey, take us in. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this study, like you said, was published in 2011, and it looked at children with ADHD. All right, ADHD affects 5% of children worldwide. I think it's one of those underdiagnosed conditions as well as much of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But that 5% of children worldwide have the official ADHD diagnosis.
And every one of the kids involved in this was diagnosed.
Yes. So 100 children, ages 4 to 8, and they did that to maximize dietary compliance. That were all 100 of the children included were previously diagnosed with ADHD, and then also confirmed by the study's independent pediatrician. So it had to have the outside, diagnosis, and then as well as confirmation in-house. Exclusion criteria of these children were anybody on medications, any ADHD or mood based medications, or even in behavioral therapy. So you could kind of classify them as untreated. Okay. 50 children were randomly assigned to the diet group, strict elimination diet. 50 were assigned to the control or non-diet group. They were simply just given recommendations to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. So this study was broken into 2 phases, primarily focused on the first phase. So the first phase is a non-blinded or open label phase. That's typically not ideal. All right. So in this case, what it just means is that the participants knew what group they were in. Usually you like double blind, where the clinicians or the evaluators, the researchers don't know, and the control group doesn't know.
Yeah.
So neither group knows is typically what you want, the double blind. In this case, it's pretty hard to have a blinded dietary group.
Yeah, kids know broccoli when they taste it.
Yes. So it's single blind. The pediatrician evaluators, as well as the teachers, they do incorporate some teacher evaluations, were blinded. So that's, just one thing to be aware of. So for phase 2, which we'll discuss in more detail later, they took the clinical responders from phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They found a 40% improvement in the ADHD rating scale, the ARS. That's the same criteria used, in the DSM-4 to diagnose and evaluate any improvement or changes in ADHD. They found a 40% improvement in that score after 6 weeks.
Wow.
Okay. They arrived at the number, because 50 is significant, but it's not exactly a massive study. But they arrived at that based on, they did an initial study, which was very similar, that had 15 So they do some statistical analysis and found that they wanted to have, 50 and 50 as the numbers. So of those 50 children, 41 completed the study. There were 9 dropouts, which is pretty normal, especially when you're dealing with dietary changes in children. So I think they did pretty good. So of those 41, 32 of them, or 78%, had that 40% improvement in their evaluations.
Wow. So say that again, 70%.
78%.
78%.
32 of 41, because there was 50 and 50. 32 of the 41 that completed after the 9 dropouts had a 40% improvement. So I know it's a lot of numbers, but 40% improvement in 78% of those that completed.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I think what was interesting too, you're dealing with mental health. Yes, you're dealing with DSM criteria, but still, how do you answer some of those 0 to 4 scales and how they're evaluated?
Sure.
So yes, like we said initially, there's an outside diagnosis. That's how they can be included in this study. But then they have the same pediatrician evaluate the baseline inclusion just to make, just confirm the diagnosis. Then they did the follow-up at the 6 weeks as well. The same. So all of them had the same pediatrician evaluating, because again, there can be some variation there. This is not a biomarker where you're looking at, are you above or below 100?
Right.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So for phase 2, 32 of the children were then allowed to be included because they had the 40% improvement. They kind of wanted to overshoot the mark of improvement on the score, because, and this makes sense, there can still be some psychological effect of just being included in the study, whether it's how your parents are parenting you, how even the child maybe psychologically is aware something's going on. So they didn't want to target 10, 20%. They used that number of 40% again, based on that previous study. So that's a
significant change
to, again, account for what I'm sure is some realistic variation that's psychologically.
Yeah.
So of those 32 that completed, they were eligible for phase 2. They called this the challenge phase. Okay. 29 of them actually ended up entering into it. But basically foods were reintroduced into the diet. And these were foods that were individualized and determined on their baseline IgG testing. Okay. So just real broadly, IgE is your immediate allergy response. I'm allergic to peanuts, bees, I carry an EpiPen. IgG are delayed reactions and sensitivities, typically associated with any type of food sensitivities. They're milder, but they can definitely be more insidious and more difficult to isolate and manage. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
So in phase 2, these 29 who entered of the 32 that were eligible were given individualized foods that they knew caused some degree of IgG elevation that was seen at baseline. Okay.
Yeah.
So they found that 13 out of the 29 high IgG, so more of an elevation, challenges, and also 13 out of 29 of the low IgG elevations had a relapse in behavior after 6 weeks, 63%.
Wow.
So ideally, I think there would be this clear split, meaning that, okay, the low IgG foods, because again, these are individualized, had a higher relapse rate than the low IgG foods. They did not see that. So don't want to go into the IgG testing too much, but I think it shows that there really any IgG elevation can cause issues, but it's not the science on it in terms of what you do once you get that IgG testing. It's controversial. And so I think what's clear is that the elevations of any type caused relapse, because they literally had the same number, 13 out of 29, but that we can't quite say, okay, if this causes this much elevation, avoid this one, you're fine. It's a lot muddier than that, unfortunately.
Right. And they weren't able to go, well, it was, a 50% relapse with 50% of the stimulation, because that's not how this works.
Yes. I think for the quality of the study and sense of what you do with the results, they would have been nice to have a bigger gap between the high IgG and low. So the elimination diet. So back kind of to basics.
Yeah. So what are they do?
Yeah. They don't give 100% specifics about what they did, but essentially it's rice, basic vegetables like lettuce and carrots, lamb, chicken, and then fruits like pears and apples. Removal of major groups like wheat, dairy, eggs, and of course, processed foods.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just kind of to go back and forth with some of the interesting things in it. So you always think of eating healthy fruit. Of course, we recommend. There are, related to this case and what we're trying to pinpoint and isolate here, fruits like strawberries, raspberries, citrus fruits, grapes, all kind of fall under the high IgG fruits. And that doesn't mean that they're causing issues. It means they have a higher potential to cause issues in those that have some sensitivities, have some things they're looking at, have ADHD, and then you can get that tested potentially to see. So they eliminated, even within, accepted food groups, eliminated fruits like that.
So they were going hardcore.
Yes.
Okay.
Processed foods. Of course, they eliminated processed foods. And I think it's just key to understand, related to processed foods, the way that they're made, Maillard reactions occur. Hydrogenation alters the proteins. Basically, you create novel antigens. And again, that doesn't mean that everybody is going to have this high IgG allergic type response. Yeah. It just means that the odds of it go up. It has impact on your gut microbiota, even food additives of really any kind, the emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, they all have the potential to do that.
Sure.
So high IgG, just some signs of it. I think it just can help to pinpoint maybe a little bit of what you'd be looking for. And this can be a little more difficult in kids, but fatigue, high rates of infections. So very sickly kids, allergies, just kind of broad-based. You find that you're allergic to different things in the environment or foods. Skin problems, rashes, hives, eczema, joint pain, GI issues, autoimmune disorders. So in kids, it's a little harder to, how often do you see some of those? You're not gonna see joint pain in kids. So it becomes a little harder to pinpoint, oh, wow, you're checking 4 of these or 5 of these, 6 boxes. So I think big picture, the study is very illuminating, but also very discouraging.
Yeah.
So I could tell by your face, you had some of those similar responses. And I think, and what I mean is it illuminates the power of diet.
Yes.
So in ADHD, it's just another tick in the box, so to say, of how critical diet is to our health overall.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because the elimination made a massive difference. Okay. It also shows that there may be a large subset of children in particular, but maybe adults as well, that have ADHD induced by food. What kind of prompted me to look at this study was a more recent study that was actually larger with 300 participants. And they found that they brought in 72% of the children after 3 months, they brought those ARS scores down below inclusion criteria. So a fancy way of saying they weren't classified as having ADHD anymore after 3 months of an elimination diet.
Goodness gracious.
Incredible stuff. But again, where do you go with this? Elimination diet forever.
Yeah.
So I guess the way I take it, and even the IgG stuff is, well, yes, we know that if you have some elevations, that those foods can contribute to this. But even within that, which ones are high, which ones are low? So this one's low. Is twice a week okay? Is once a week? That becomes so difficult. But I still think there's a takeaway in terms of understanding what's going on. Yeah. And then from there, you gather the information and you make individual decisions. Because again, elimination diet forever. I mean, that's really,
that's a pretty strong position.
Yes. And even with kids, I know for my kids, it's, well, I'm trying to get them to eat fruit and maybe they just love strawberries and that's great. And they're eating strawberries, but then maybe there's some ADHD issues and you check it out and that's one that can cause some IgG elevations. Maybe they're not real big on the grilled chicken, but they love eggs and you find that. So it's just, the processed foods is pretty clear cut. I think they're not easy decisions. We're exposed to them all the time. I think you can draw those lines much easier than you can on things like, within specific food groups like that.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to go to the trouble of eliminating all of the processed food from my diet or my kids' diet, that's rough. But then, okay, now you can't have strawberries. Well, what in the world am I supposed to eat? Like what is left that's good and sweet and, convenient like that. I just had a bunch of strawberries,
Yeah.
so I'm feeling a little
And I think I know
self-conscious.
yes, and I know some of this has already been said, but it does not mean strawberries are causing any of this.
Right.
Okay. It means it's potential. It has a higher chance than a pear. That's all that means. And so I also would like to make clear that I don't think that the elimination diet in perpetuity is a practical and reasonable solution. So again, what do we do with this information? I think to me, step one, if you're dealing with this, even if you're an adult, but if you have a child dealing with ADHD symptoms, it's not easy. But if you try the elimination diet for 6 weeks and you see a significant difference, then at least, again, it's a piece of information you understand.
Yep.
So these symptoms that I'm seeing, especially in something, talk about this a lot, but that's a spectrum. It's not, my cholesterol is this number and I can move it or I don't. And it's a spectrum of you're trying to determine all these. What about when the subject at school is really hard or they hate? What about when the subject's okay? What about when they're really into this hobby that's productive? All these things contribute to how we're evaluating these kids. And so it's very difficult. But if you can keep variables pretty consistent, and you can do as close as you can to an elimination diet for a period of time, that can at least let you know that this is food induced or not.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're trying to make a decision about a medication. Maybe it's to that point for you. Well, if you can eliminate food as a cause, then you can at least, as you're trying to make that decision, just know that you've got less options.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what's really important. And then from there, if you do see a difference, what do you do? I would do the IgG testing. Like I mentioned, it's not as black and white, clear cut as, we all want these answers of, it was just the strawberries. Yes, my kid's dealing with this, but I did this. And then we found it's too much strawberries, high IgG, that's going to fix this. That's not what this is about. There probably, if it is related, will be a grouping of them and there'll be a few. And then from there, you do your best to maybe eliminate some of those to see if, yes, of course, the full elimination is not a go, but we eliminate these types, we eliminate these specific foods, whether they're high or low. I think this study showed that whether it's high or low, you take a look at them. And then from there, you can see if you can find something that's just a more limited diet versus full elimination. Again, the elimination is what got the major movement here, but it doesn't mean that needs to be what goes on. It can be an individualized plan for you that deals with the foods that are specifically triggering to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that for me, in my world, when I was trying to figure out what was going on with my ADHD, I eliminated a whole bunch of foods.
Interesting.
And I did see a radical improvement in my ability to focus and my distractibility. And I maintained it for a long time, but not forever. And I'm still very careful about what I eat, but it is... The idea of doing an elimination diet in perpetuity is overwhelming, and I can't imagine trying to make a kid do that. It would just be terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's no birthday parties ever. Sorry, kid.
Yes, and I know I've kind of hit on it already, but I think so many things, when you're dealing with, well, you can do this IgG testing, and it seems a little out there. I think what it comes down to so often is this black and white feeling on it. Right. It works. It's going to cure everything. It's going to fix you. Those drugs are terrible. Or it's garbage and it doesn't provide any value. Whereas with so many of this, the truth is in the middle.
Yeah.
That yes, you can find that grouping maybe of foods that are of issue and just proceed as best as you can moving forward. The point again of the elimination is just to start to begin to figure out, does food make a difference for you?
Yeah.
And then from there, how do you deal with it? So I think, again, as long as you meet in the middle, and I would be remiss not to mention too, that behavioral therapies for kids are huge. That's I kind of almost jumped from the food to the medicine. And that was to make clear that I'm not demonizing the medication approach at all. And I think that's why it's important to do something like this, so you can even clear up in your own mind if that's something that you need to do.
Yeah.
But the middle ground, and really what I think goes best with any type of mental health issue, is doing some type of behavioral therapy and to help these kids. They're exposed to so much. I know even with my kids, and I've had to unwind some of what I've allowed them to do with screens and things like that.
Yep. Yeah.
We when we were young, it wasn't great to sit there and watch an hour-and-a-half movie, but now they're watching these 3-minute clips.
Yep.
And they're skipping them at 30 seconds if they don't like them. And we wonder why maybe they don't pay attention to 20 minutes of a math lesson in school. It was hard for us. Imagine how hard it is for them.
Absolutely.
Then you throw in all these different foods that maybe we weren't exposed to, throw in some individual issues, and there's a lot at play.
Yeah.
So I think something like this, again, it's not, oh, I've listened to this video and now I've got the solution. It's I've listened to this video and I've got a little more information about what maybe I can do to help manage this before I would go to something that may be necessary, like a medication.
Absolutely.
And I think the behavioral stuff is, whether you're on the med or you're doing some type of elimination or anywhere in between, the behavioral stuff is, I think, critical.
That's fantastic. Man, I love studies like this, and it kills me that this came out a decade ago and I had never seen it.
Yeah.
And this is something that I care about, that I'm involved with, and I'm engaging with, and I'd never seen it. Why have I never seen this study? It's a solid study. It's well put together. It's well done.
And I know philosophically we get into this often, but it's because they couldn't pinpoint a specific med that did this, or even a specific supplement. Or you take this supplement, you get this massive difference, then it's everywhere. Or they couldn't pinpoint one specific bad guy, one specific, well, see, it was the food additives.
Yep.
And we're going to get the food additives out and you're set.
Yeah.
No, it still could be strawberries.
Yeah.
So I think as much information is in here, and as in a broad scale, how illuminating it really is, because there's no easy solution, those things kind of tend to get lost. And you can put a little headline up and say, no food additives there. If you eliminate food additives, but if you look in the details, it's a lot more than food additives, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't mean food additives are perfectly fine either. We live in this gray where everybody wants black and white.
I do. I want black and white. I want it simple.
We all do.
Dante, you had a topic you wanted to cover today, didn't you?
Yeah.
You should have said no. It would have been funnier.
No.
I didn't.
I'm just a question I'm tired of answering. No, I'm just kidding. We were going to talk about weighted vests and rucking.
That's right, because Josiah brought that up.
Did I?
You did on a separate chit chat when we were tearing down, right?
Yeah.
I think that's when it was.
Again, there was a listener question too, just a very general, should I get a weighted vest?
I love the general questions.
So I mean, it's come up enough, and I don't have an overly scientific answer on the whole thing.
Okay.
But just given the timing, beginning of summer, Murph is a famous workout, CrossFit workout, where participants wear a 20-pound or a 14-pound weighted vest.
And you said weighted vest. So this is literally just a vest that you strap onto your body that has extra weights in it. Mm-hmm. And that's all there is to it.
Right.
Okay.
There are varying degrees on how well they fit, how nice they are. One's like a little more military style.
Yeah.
Some are more, just
different types of weights. They have like plates.
Yeah.
Some have like plated weights. Others are like sandbags, removable.
Yeah. You can fine tune your weights versus
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at one just the other day and thought, oh, I should get this. And then it was $200. And I went, I should not buy this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, if you look out into your neighborhood at any given time, there's people, maybe they have a little bit of weight in their backpack, or they're rucking, which is technically a little different because of the weight distribution. So point being, it comes up enough, figure we would just talk about it a little bit. And
what is the difference?
So a weighted vest is just on both sides. Usually there's weight on the front and weight on the back, and it's strapped pretty tight to you. Mm-hmm. The rucking, or think of like a backpack, basically. It's just weight on the backside is all. In short, a proper ruck is, you can secure it to your body better than just wearing your school backpack and throwing some dumbbells in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the distribution on that side is still a little better, but it's a different experience.
Yeah.
Weight vest to ruck.
Having the weight close to your body makes it feel radically different than having it, just behind you and weighing backward.
Exactly. But yeah, a ruck is just a fancy way to characterize a weighted backpack.
Okay. So we've got these questions. Tell us your thoughts, Dante. Weighted vest. Yeah or nah?
It's a good tool. It's a good tool. I think just depending on the person.
Yeah.
And it depends on your expectations from it. So I think when getting this question, I like to understand where the person's coming from. A lot of times it's veiled in, well, I just want to lose more weight. I figured maybe I could burn more calories when I go for my walk if I have 10 or 15 or 20 pounds on me versus when I don't. Or walking is too easy. I want to make it hard, so
Yeah.
it just depends on the, intent behind the question. Conveniently, we can talk about it at some point. There was a study that just like a preprint or a pilot study that just came out that talks about weighted vests in the context of weight loss. So we can revisit that, but I just think between the Murph workout where everybody's getting the weighted vest to wear it once a year, and that may be completely irrelevant depending on what your circle is. But if you've spent any time on social media, you've invariably seen somebody talking about it.
Yeah, they show up.
Between the questions that we get, and so I think it's and because it is, a useful tool for some people.
Yeah.
So it's worth talking about.
So what are some good ways to use a weighted vest? I mean, you said putting on the weighted vest and just walking around.
And like I said, depending on the person asking the question, it also depends on maybe their current fitness ability or their current activity level. So if you're somebody who just started walking as a means to beginning more exercise, throwing on 20 pounds, 15 pounds, 10 pounds even may sound like it's not a whole lot, but you just have to view it as analogous to putting more weight on the bench press, putting more weight on the squat. You're just making you have a means to making the activity more intense. So even though it's just a few pounds on your body weight, it is additional loading that just depending on who you are, you might be a little bit unprepared for. So again, I'm hesitant in somebody very baseline to say that, just get a weight vest. It'll make it harder because, your 30-minute walks are going to feel too easy. It's like, well, we probably have other means to manipulating some of those variables like intensity, volume for somebody just starting. You simply, you and I work together. You add 5 more minutes to the run or to the walk. You add maybe some more hills, change the terrain, treadmill versus track versus outdoor. Like there are ways to change the environment, change the stimulus that I think in general, and I'm ranting a little bit, but I don't often jump to the weight vest thing. Now, if it's somebody who is biased towards CrossFit style training like I am, and they joined a gym and there's a great community and they're 3 months away from a weighted vest event of some sort, then that's a much different conversation. But again, it's just context is everything. You would expose that person to a ruck or a weight vest little by little, just like you would expose them to push-ups and pull-ups and whatever else, depending on what your goal is to eventually, when they find themselves in whatever that event is or that goal performance is, that they've had enough exposures to it that it just doesn't totally shock them.
Sure.
More or less.
Yeah. Okay. In a CrossFit style workout or something like that, are there ways that it's used in a gym other than just walking around or running?
So you can definitely, and it depends too how good how quality the vest is too.
Yeah.
If you're doing pull-ups or you're swinging around or you're doing sit-ups or with the vest and it's not properly situated, it's 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds, like
actively moving around
and can bounce up and hit you in the chin or something. But provided that it's half decent. I mean, push-ups, pull-ups, air squats. I mean, you can do just about anything.
Lunges.
You could do just about anything. It's if you have a weight belt, let's say you're doing pull-ups or something or weighted dips, if you're a little more advanced and you've loaded that up, you can certainly, I would say for the most part, put more weight on a belt. You can easily load that up. Whereas you're not typically going to wear a vest with like 100 pounds on it. So I think just right off the top, you're limited with what you can wear in the vest.
It seems like it's keyed more toward endurance than it is toward the short-term bursty thing. Yes.
And that's, I'm glad you mentioned that. But before I jump to that point, it is, you just basically, you're just making air squats a little more intense. You're just making push-ups a little more intense. You're just making pull-ups a little harder. We do weighted pull-ups all the time. I think it's very useful for people to be able to do a weighted pull-up or weighted push-up, weighted dip. And if it means you have a vest as the means of loading it, then that's great. It is nice. If you're doing a weighted push-up, for example, somebody has to put a weight on your back or you have to like do this very fancy
Yeah.
maneuver so it doesn't land on you or fall off when you're doing the exercise. And so, yeah, if you have a vest, it's just a really nice way to add and make those movements more intense. But notice it's, again, the intensity keeps popping up. So for a lot of people, they want to jump right to this.
Yeah.
Well, I foresee that my workouts are just going to be too easy. So I just need a vest and I need to, this walking can't be that bad. So I
Right.
just need to throw some weight on my back and I'll be good. So I think we just have to be cautious with that. You can certainly move into that in time. I'm just always a little overkill, I think, with the best of intentions to, with somebody just getting started. Why all of this right now? Just build into it. A vest could eventually be a great tool. And the part that you mentioned that I wanted to circle back to is that the vests do pop up in endurance settings. But it is interesting because my opinion is that it's probably not the best way to develop endurance. If somebody's just trying to get better at running or trying to get better cycling, throwing on a weighted vest as the means of increasing intensity to get better at said endurance thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really, when you think about it logically, do we really think that's the best way? Because again, we have so many other ways to manipulate intensity. Tyler, we're talking about running. We've never talked about weighted vests because we're talking about the volume, the time spent on your feet, the pace of your best mile, the fastest mile, this, 12-minute time trial. Like there are ways to understand and prescribe intensity by, with the goal of improving your cardiorespiratory fitness without bumping up the intensity using a weighted vest. If you said, hey, you know what? I'm really bored of running now and I think I need to spice things up and I want to do Murph next year, then like the heck with it. Just get a weighted vest and we can have some fun with it. And that's a great pivot, I think. Just more or less just highlighting some different strokes for different folks.
Sure.
That's all.
My immediate thought when you were talking about that is, one of the problems with obesity is that it puts so much extra strain on your joints that when you're doing things like walking to help change all of that, you are more prone to injury than when you're not in that category. Wouldn't this, for a lot of that, not that there's obviously it's a tool and it's useful for situations, but just for general fitness, it seems like this would be unnecessarily opening yourself up to extra strain on joints that is not necessarily a great idea.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to the idea of, just not being prepared all of a sudden to handle that loading. It doesn't seem that much. It doesn't seem like that crazy if you have somebody squatting 135 and yeah, there's 135 on my back. What's the difference of, walking around?
If I do lunges with 45 pounds, why can't I walk with 20?
Right. Sure. The disease process of obesity is probably a little more insidious, takes a little more time.
Sure.
But sure, the point remains the same. You throw on a weighted vest and you're not used to that. You're still adding load. You're still adding intensity to movements and to activity that otherwise have been unloaded for 99% of your life. So there's just a level of preparedness in the simplest sense that people don't have jumping into something like this.
So my comparison is terrible, but the point is true.
We'll go with that.
Okay. All right.
But no, you're right. I mean, that's a huge part of, just the more anecdotal aspect of things. Individuals who have been on these GLP-1 agonists and such, who they've not needed a joint replacement as quickly since they were able to more readily lose weight and relieve some of the burden. So it wasn't directly what you were saying, but it's certainly relevant to the discussion.
Fair enough. All right. So you were talking about, you said there was a study from recently about weighted vests. What's that about?
So yes, there was a study that came out. It was published May 11th of this year.
Oh, wow.
And title being, does weighted vest use during weight loss influence long-term weight loss maintenance? A pilot study on older adults living with obesity and osteoarthritis.
Wow, that is shockingly direct and to the point.
Yeah. So some of these titles, you never know what you're going to get. So they weren't just looking at how adding a weight vest to activity would change weight loss during that time.
Yeah.
But also fast forward, because weight regain is such a big issue. A lot of people can knock 5-10 pounds off fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It's the subsequent months of regain and additional weight gain. So they wanted to unpack that a little bit more. Really, it just like at the outset, it was a really small study. I mean, we're talking only 37 people total, and not maybe a whole. You can't really garner as much from this as you would hope, but it certainly brings about some interesting discussion points.
Yeah. So how long was the study? I mean, because if regain was one of the questions, I imagine it had to go more than a couple of months.
Yeah. So the initial intervention, they looked at the change in weight after 6 months.
Okay.
So both groups after 6 months, again, this was 2 groups.
Mm-hmm.
One did only caloric restriction, and they had a specific diet that they followed, like Medifast, I believe.
Okay.
Very low calorie. And then also caloric restriction plus weighted vest. Now, the key thing here was they were required to wear the vest 10 hours a day.
Oh my.
So now it's important to clarify, we're not talking about, did I wear a weighted vest for Murph, or did I wear a vest for this little bit of exercise I did? But this is a different sort of fitting vest that they're wearing. This is not a ruck. It's a vest that is specific to be able to, wear at work and not be in the way.
Underneath clothes or something.
Underneath clothing. Exactly. So there are, not necessarily a drawback, but again, just 2 different sort of situations. There's not really I think a strong way that we can extrapolate this to somebody who says, for 2 hours a week total, I'm going to have a 20-pound weight vest on.
Right.
It's just not the same thing.
Okay. So,
again, they wore their vest upwards of 10 hours a day. And then after this 6-month period, both groups lost weight. The vest group lost a little bit more, on average 11.2 kilograms.
Oh, wow.
And the no vest group lost 10.3 kilograms. So you're talking well over 20 pounds for each group.
And that's a 10% difference if I did the math right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you think about, it's like a kilo difference. That's 2.2 pounds. It's, sometimes when we step on the scale, it's easily
water weights can
right.
easily swing that.
Now the crux of it was at 24 months, 2
years.
Yes. That's what they were really interested in. At 24 months, the group that wore the weighted vest maintained more weight loss, on average of 4.8 kilograms of weight loss.
Wow.
Versus the non-vest group, who regained all of the weight and on average was actually 0.9 kilograms of added weight.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Right. So, and then they also did test resting metabolic rate. The resting rate dropped less in the vest group. So they only saw an average change of about 16 kilocalories per day, whereas the non-vest group saw a much steeper drop, about 240 kilocalories per day. And so that, just to help process that a little bit, whenever people are in more extreme caloric deficits, there's all sorts of compensatory mechanisms at play that we've talked about. One of which is resting metabolic rate ramping down. So it would be great. We would all be losing tons of weight at ease if, as we lost weight, our resting metabolic rate remained high. But because you're losing tissue, you're losing muscle tissue, you're again, these compensatory mechanisms at play, your body's now trying to preserve what you have. And therefore, as reflected in your resting metabolic rate, it's doing something that's almost maladaptive in a way when you think about it.
Yeah.
So,
certainly to modern day living.
To modern day living. Exactly.
So, okay, but you're saying that the vested group, their resting metabolic rate
it was as if they still had all the weight. It was as if the
Wow.
body was perceiving possibly that they got used to that extra weight that was present. Do you know what I'm saying?
Did they continue to wear the vest for the 24 months?
No.
Interesting.
Right. Right.
So even after they stopped wearing the vest, their resting metabolic rate didn't adapt as much as if it came off directly. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just not my area of expertise, but this idea of gravitational loading by means of a weighted vest or a ruck that really hasn't been studied in this context tons of times, but there are some theories out there that this is what happens. It plays a large role in terms of why it's so hard for individuals to keep weight off or to lose weight. It's a theory called the gravitostat theory. And it basically just says that the body regulates fat mass in response to mechanical loading. And so we essentially have these sensors more or less like in the lower body, that are likely in like some of our bone cells or osteocytes. And they can sense these changes in your total body mass and signal essentially back up to the brain to increase or decrease appetite depending on where you fall to maintain whatever the desired energy balance is.
That's fascinating.
And so it's just fascinating to see that, I don't know, a very small pilot study does reflect some of what's present in that theory.
But all of that is to say, you probably shouldn't try wearing a typical commercially available weighted vest 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's going to mess with your clothes.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. It's cumbersome.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound real. It doesn't really sound like a whole lot of fun.
But it is interesting to see how the body is responding to these different stimuli and how we can manipulate things now, try and gain a little more understanding.
Yep. But of course you maybe not, but you might see people saying, well, see, this is why I have a ruck.
Yeah.
That's why I wear my weighted vest, because I can lose
10 hours a day.
Much different.
Yeah.
I think it all goes back to, like you said at the beginning, like context behind why someone would want to.
It does.
Get a weighted vest.
It does. You're 100% right. There were some little tidbits I think that we missed along the way that maybe we can just grab quickly. They actually used this 10-hour wearing vested time as a replacement to traditional exercise. So it didn't appear that the individuals were doing any sort of other exercise in this 6-month period, at least in the
not prescribed necessarily.
Yeah, so you have to assume that they weren't. I mean, if I was wearing a 10-hour a day and a 25-pound vest, then I'd probably skip it too.
No, I wouldn't feel much like moving at the end.
And I say 25 pounds, but directly from the study, this is how they kind of determined how much to load each person, and then also the goal for each person. But again, they wore the vest for up to 10 hours a day during the most active part of their day, with a goal of at least 50% of awake time wearing the vest. The vest was increased weekly by study staff with the goal of replacing all lost weight up to a maximum of 15% of the participants' baseline weight.
Okay.
So they weren't just wearing like 5 pounds.
It wasn't a random thing. It was literally set to replace the weight that they lost. So they're literally trying to trick the body into thinking that it's still the same size that it was.
Yeah. And you figure, hey, if you're up on your feet for 10 hours, if it's on for 10 hours, you're standing for most of that time. You're trying to cross the wires intentionally if there really is some feedback mechanism going on.
And it seems like that kind of worked.
It certainly was a novel finding, I would say. So I don't.
What were the occupations? 10 hours of the most active part of your day. I mean, if you sit at a desk, if you have a desk job, or like you're a waitress.
Yeah. There's
what I mean?
Some
like
radically different.
Yeah.
But
I'm curious.
But at least it's consistent per individual. Theoretically, you didn't have somebody go from being a desk worker to a waiter or waitress. Like it consistent for the individual, but still.
Mm-hmm.
So what did the researchers say that the punchline, what did they take away from this?
Yeah, so they just felt that these results suggested that among older adults who wore a weighted vest during caloric restriction, initial weight loss was better preserved at 24 months again, which may be due to this preserved resting metabolic rate. And they suggest that future work should aim to confirm these findings in an adequately powered study. So
yeah. More studies are needed.
Yeah, I don't know why was the resting metabolic rate preserved? And again, is it simply due to the theory that we mentioned? Is there something else at play? Was there lean? Was the change in lean tissue between groups what changed it? What if they lifted also in addition to this? What would that have done to resting metabolic rate? There's definitely some interesting things here. I don't know, fascinating nonetheless.
Very cool.
So this last part has nothing to do with whether or not I would recommend a weighted vest.
No, but
for somebody,
you wouldn't recommend it for this situation specifically, though it does seem to have worked. In general, weighted vest, yeah or nah?
If you have a few extra bucks, then yeah, because you definitely don't want to be wearing somebody else's because
they smell.
They can really they can accumulate some sweat and some odor. So
I guess maybe the way to think of it, the question is kind of like saying dumbbells, yeah or no?
Exactly.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
Are you going to use them for the thing that they're intended for?
Exactly. Yeah, I know when I got my weighted vest, I did Murph and then I didn't touch it again until a few weeks before doing Murph. And then I did Murph and then the same thing happened again. And so if that's the frequency at which you're going to use it, then maybe your money's better spent elsewhere. But
yeah, get a trainer.
Yeah, but they are fun. And it's also like you have this weighted vest on for an extended period and you do a quick workout and then you take it off and everything, you just feel so light on your feet.
That's true.
It's like the swinging a weighted bat, which even that doesn't even, I saw somewhere that if you swing a weighted bat and then you take the weight off and you swing the bat without the weight, that your swing is slower, even though it feels faster.
Huh.
So maybe that's why my career didn't last super long.
Well, that is it for us this week. If you have a question you'd like to get answered, definitely as seriously as this one was, email us questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That site, askjoedimatteo.com, is also where you can find past episodes of this show, the show that started all this, the Ask the Joe DiMatteo Show. You can find the products that we sell. We've got a bunch of fantastic things. We've just made a whole bunch of changes to the Essentials lineup. Go check it out, askjoedimatteo.com. Big thanks as always to everybody that helps make this show happen. And if you liked this or you learned something or you know somebody else who could use this information, pass the show on, please. That is the best thing you can do to help us out. That's it. Thanks so much. Dante's out.